got a great conversation coming up talking all things Dräger. So I'm joined by Barton, hello, the account manager for fire and safety for Southern UK, and Brian Hesler, the consultant for Dräger. So hello, and thank you very much for joining us here today. So Kevin, my first question is for you. Can you tell us about Dräger, what it manufactures, and how the company's grown since it was founded, what was in 1889?
1889, yes. So Dräger's built up of two divisions. The first division is Dräger Medical, and they do medical devices for the likes of anaesthesia machines, patient monitoring, baby incubators, ventilators, so the whole theatre suite as well. Dräger Safety is safety equipment, and that includes any sector within the global industries. Very heavily in the fire sector, globally and in the UK here. 1889, it was started by the design and manufacture of a CO2 valve for beer kegs. And then from then, we've introduced the first portable ventilator, the first breathing apparatus, the first baby incubator, and there's been so many developments over the years. Turnover-wise, is about 3.5 billion euros globally, and about 18,000 employees. In the UK, where we're based in the UK, is the Global Excellence for breathing apparatus, and that's for research and development, product managers, and global manufacturing as well, in Blythe, just north of Newcastle. In the UK, for the fire sector, I cover the south of the UK and my colleague covers the north, and to support us, we have approximately 100 service engineers servicing our equipment for our users, both in fire and in general industry. So we very heavily into the service side of things, for our customers.
Right. And Brian, I've got a question for you. So what are some of the key elements of technology that you feel that manufacturers have not yet developed that would make a real difference to keeping our firefighters safe?
Yeah, firefighters have relied on technology for decades. In the very early days, it was very much mechanical, breathing systems, breathing apparatus. It's now moved on to much more digital type solutions. We already see the new command systems the fire brigades have, which are pretty well developed now, been in place a number of years. From the firefighters' point of view themselves, and we sometimes forget about the person, we think about the equipment, the incident, the fire, the casualties. We don't think about the firefighter, and their health is really, really important. So to keep that person safe, there's two key things I think are missing from the portfolio for fire. One is biometrics, to understand the body core temperature of the firefighter, heart rate, how they suffer from heat stress. That's really important. If you know how well your firefighter is, you can withdraw them quickly. If they're not feeling well, you can leave them instant longer. It sort of uses the asset better and keeps the firefighter safer. The other one is really important, is know where the firefighter is at any incident, because once you enter a burning building, there's a firefighter and a commander watching, you really don't know where the firefighter's gone. And in many cases, the firefighter doesn't know exactly where they are, because visibility is so low. You might have the support of a thermal imaging camera, but it's intermittent. So Dräger's produced a device at the moment which will help locate the person within the building, 3D technology. They can track them through the building. That will be launched very shortly. And we also have a device which measures the body core temperature of the firefighter, as well as the heart rate. And the idea is that the entry control officer, the person outside the building, who's monitoring the teams, will have a traffic light system. They will understand whether it's red, amber, green for the firefighter's health. A bit like astronauts, modern astronauts in space. So you can tell if the person's well enough. They could have a virus which elevates their core temperature. And that's responded to some of the recommendations from inquiries and inquests into deaths of firefighters. So that's been the basis of it. So the two big areas: where is the firefighter in the building, and where have they been? What rooms have they searched? It's better directed search technology, so you know each room's been checked properly. This came out of Grenfell, one of the recommendations of Grenfell from the Phase 2 report. But also about the firefighter themselves, their fitness. That's really important. They're the two big issues.
Okay. And then Kevin, so what are some of the new developments that Dräger is working on that will improve the operational effectiveness of firefighters?
Yeah, so as Brian just said, the firefighter locator and the physiological monitoring system, but also we've just introduced a new thermal imaging camera, a hands-free thermal imaging camera, which is called the UCF Firecore. And this enables the firefighter to have a real-time image of the thermal imaging camera in their head-up display in their mask, which means it makes it easier for them to do their job, i.e. to tackle the fire, to rescue casualties. So that's a new product that we've just recently introduced. The other sort of new technology-wise is the updated telemetry. Telemetry has been very good in the UK for Dräger, and the next generation telemetry called Fireground will give you a much better overview of the teams that you've deployed and all their data, so it's real-time data, and obviously then the information up into the cloud, which the incident command can then view and monitor the whole situation.
Right, and Brian, so apart from the obvious benefits to sort of operational response, what are the tangible benefits in the training environment?
I think one of the important things for a firefighter is maintaining the competence. If you go back 20, 30 years, when I was a firefighter, we had a lot of incidents. Brigades were very busy, a lot of experience, practical experience. Training wasn't quite so important because you had hands-on activity. It was still important, but not as important as these days when you don't get the operational experience, the hands-on, so you've got to do it in a simulated environment. And whether that's using modern technology or whether it's actually in a training unit, you need to have proper feedback for the firefighter. They need to understand what they did right, what they did wrong. It needs to be easily understood. So I mentioned the 3D tracking the location of firefighters. If you can tell a firefighter they definitely searched a particular part of the building or hadn't searched a particular part of the building, and were able to explain to them they made too rapid progress or too slow progress, or they didn't attack the fire from the right position, that's all good feedback, that feedback loop of information to improve the competence. So that's one area. The other area is useful is to firefighters understand when they're reaching that physical limit, when they can no longer work at full tilt. That's really important, because if you don't normally realise when you're struggling with that heat stress element, and sometimes you go beyond it. And we've lost a few firefighters in the UK and around the world. Paris Fire Brigade lost a few firefighters over the past 5 years through heat stress and getting lost in buildings. So they are the two key things that would be useful in the training environment to help the firefighter understand how they can do the job better and what the limitations are as well.
It's really interesting. And then, so Kevin, in terms of the sort of Healthy Firefighter campaign, what's Dräger doing as part of that?
Yeah, Dräger have been working and supporting the Healthy Firefighter campaign for a number of years now. We introduced the breathing apparatus washing machine to clean and disinfect the BA sets and the masks. That's proving really successful in the UK and in Europe as well. We've also worked with our customers on best practices on cleaning equipment post-incident. So after the firefighters come out of the incident, they clean their BA sets down. So then they're not transferring those contaminants back to the fire station. The clean cab policy for new vehicles, we fully support that, obviously. So yeah, there's a lot of things going with the Healthy Firefighter campaign, and that's just ongoing, and that will evolve over time as well to where we were, say, 4 years ago to 5-10 years from now. So fully support that.
And this next question, I think it's a little bit for both of you, because there's obviously a number of really sort of specific technological elements to Dräger's portfolio that you've both touched on. So will these form part of an integrated sort of solution or system? Brian, are you able to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I always regard the Dräger system as an ecosystem for the firefighter. It goes from the sort of micro level of the person, the firefighter, the individual. And people sometimes forget that soft, squishy bit in the middle, which is the firefighter. We all think that, firefighters are all, they're all kind of macho and can do anything. That's not the case. So you go right from that micro level right to the macro level where you've got the command view, and you look down at the incident remotely, and you can see where your entry control points are for breathing apparatus, where you each BA where it is in the building. You can monitor that as well. The fitness of your firefighters while they're in there. So you've got this. It's almost like a bubble around the firefighter. There at the center, and then you've got it builds out from there in layers, a bit like an onion, and eventually you've got that macro level, the high level, where Gold Command, maybe back at brigade headquarters or remotely, or maybe even mobilise and control, can access the incident and see what's happening in great detail close to the incident. I see it as a nice, what I would call an ecosystem, Dräger ecosystem.
How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I think if you think of the fire service as a whole and where we come into it, there's various touch points that we get involved with. Obviously, the equipment, the breathing apparatus, but there's training, there's servicing as well, sort of asset management as well. So each of these touch points, each of these parts of that circle, we have a point to touch, if that makes sense. And we feel right from the service technicians who are maintaining the equipment, whether that's in-house servicing or our own service engineers, right the way through to the firefighter on the front line. There's various touch points, and each one is as important as each other. And obviously with the new technology coming through now as well, there's more training involved. It isn't just a case of donning the BA set and breathing. There's a lot more to that now, with the new technologies.
Tell us about Dräger's approach to diversity.
If you can imagine the fire service 20 years ago, almost everybody was a man in the fire service, nearly all male firefighters. That's changed significantly and for the better. What Dräger's attempted to do, and we're making a real good fist of it, is actually get diversity at the heart of the product development. So everything we design now has in mind the diverse groups, the underrepresented groups. And we work very closely with Women in the Fire Service and the Asian Fire Service Association to try and help those, shall I say, underrepresented groups. They're not sort of middle-aged white male groups, the people who've got different requirements and needs. We're trying to work with them to develop the product to make sure it fits and it serves the needs of that part of the force, which is growing day by day. We're seeing a much more diverse brigade now than we ever had in the UK. It's still not moving at the rate it should. It's a very slow process. We hope it'll move quicker. But if they move quicker with the diversity, we've got to make sure the kit is fit for purpose. Because that's the only way you can make the firefighter safe, is to make sure it fits properly, does the job. Things like facial hair. We have issues around cultural facial hair or religious facial hair. There's a challenge there. Saying to somebody you have to have a clean-shaven face isn't simple. They've got religious beliefs they have to follow. We also have a situation with the frame of a woman is always different. The hips are normally a different size, the waist's often slimmer. So we've got to design a kit differently than it used to be designed 20 years ago, and that's at the heart of what we do in Dräger.
Brian, you mentioned a moment ago about your sort of phase 2 coming out of the report following the inquiry of the Grenfell. Are any of Dräger's new or emerging technologies, are they likely to assist in discharging the recommendations of Sir Martin Morbick and improving firefighting tactics for sort of high-rise buildings? Yeah,
in the phase 1 report, there were very little comments made by the inquiry regarding the breathing apparatus and the solutions. It was mainly around communications equipment, integrated communications equipment, which is basically a piece of equipment that gives a firefighter ability to speak almost hands-free to the control of the incident commander. That was lacking in London at the time of the fire, so that was mentioned in the phase 1 report. Phase 2 is not such a heavy report on the fire service, but there are comments in there about the fire service response and equipment. One of the comments was about the fact that firefighters are often committed to higher floors, but never made it because they would come across casualties, maybe at, say they were sent to the 10th floor, they find a casualty on the 4th floor, so they would respond with that casualty. So the fire service assumed that person had gone to the upper floor but hadn't. So the search process was very much hampered by not understanding where the firefighter was in the building or where they'd been. And that's where that 3D location technology, or being able to tag a casualty, if you find somebody, put a tag on them so that person's then marked for the next firefighter to pick up if they aren't in a dangerous situation. That sort of 3D location tech will resolve that or bring a great deal of help to that situation. That's one of the biggest wins there. Plus, when you're climbing a floor, a high-rise building rather, a number of floors, if you're climbing a building, the heat stress does build up very quickly. So by the time you get to the 5th and 6th floor, you can feel that stress. Get to the higher floors, 18th floor, you are struggling. And that would help, I mentioned earlier, this biometric, this physiological monitoring system, that will help the people outside and the firefighter understand if they're reaching their limits of stress.
Kevin, anything to add there?
Not really. There's a lot of lessons learned from these major incidents, whether it's Grenfell, whether it's at Jenner's up in Scotland. So, but unfortunately, we're learning after these major, unfortunate incidents. But we're there obviously to support the fire services and to offer any advice, from our equipment and their new technology coming through. So, yeah, it's just unfortunate how we have to do that.
I think what's important, and Kevin's really hit the nail on the head there about trying to solve some of these issues, is that the fire service know where they've got the gaps. They understand where the problems are. It's up to industry to solve it. We're there to help them solve it, but we need that negotiation with the fire service, that integration with the fire service to tell us what they want. You tell us what your needs are and we'll try and solve it, rather than us offer them a product and then say it's not quite right or it doesn't quite work, So that is really important. That interface is really important.
Because we've introduced products, not necessarily as a breathing system, but other products in our portfolio where customers have come to us say, we have this problem, can you help us fix it? And we've come up with a solution. And then in time, that becomes a standard product then, you see. So we work with our customers, with various different things. That could be products, it could be services, it could be training, whatever we can help them with, we can do that.
And where can people find you at the Emergency Services Show, and what are you exhibiting here?
So we're just by the entrance as you walk in, on the left-hand side, big Dräger stand there. We've got breathing apparatus, we have our new telemetry, we have the new hands-free thermal imaging camera, but we've also added bits and pieces or products into the stand. We have a diving product. We have a new wildfire simulator, which is really interesting. But I would encourage people to come and see us on that. And it simulates how the fire spreads in a wildfire incident. So for training on wildfires, because there's lots of wildfires in the UK and globally, obviously. And there's a free coffee as well from our barista. So if you want a free coffee, then come and see us. It's very good.
And why is the Emergency Services Show so important and such a special place for Dräger?
Brian, do you want to?
Yeah, I think it's probably the only event in the UK where you get everybody together from the blue light sector. And fire are quite a prominent part of that. And you do see all the new technologies here. Everybody's showcasing it, which is really important. I mentioned the 3D technology that's on the Dräger stand as well today. That's certainly worth a look. Do demonstrations in the building. And they're the sort of hands-on things firefighters can do. Everyone's in the same place. You're not flying around the country asking firefighters to travel to different areas of the country to speak to manufacturers. They're all here, in the same place, and it just makes a good 2 days out, I think.
Yeah, it's the biggest exhibition in the UK for the fire sector and also the ambulance and blue light, inverted commas. So we treat it very seriously. It is the big one for us. So even though we obviously do smaller regional ones as well, the National BA Challenge, we sponsor that, and that's a really good couple of days. But this is the big one for us in the UK. So really excited to be here this year.
Well, Kevin, Brian, thank you so much for talking with me today. Really, really interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.